Download and watch it live on Sport TV Now app.
Hello and welcome to Monaco, a place known for the glitz and the glamour. But this weekend, the spotlight shifts to formulaE as rounds 6 and 7 take centre stage in the Principality. With 5 races in 5 weeks, the championship is wide open and it's all currently look. So it is still Oliver Rowland, despite a penalty at the top, a 15-point gap between himself and Antonio Felix Costa, who's had 3 podiums so far. And then joint on points, 51 points each, Pascal Wehrlein and Taylor Barnard. If we look at the second page of the standings, interesting to see Lucas de Grassi has propelled himself up with that podium finish in second place. 12th in the standings with Sam Bird just behind. But the likes of David Beckman, Zane Maloney, still looking for their first points here this weekend. So much to play for. Let's remind ourselves it's Tag Heuer Porsche who are at the top there with a 25-point gap ahead of Nissan. Neon McLaren, DS Penske, Mahindra and Maserati.
What an exciting weekend's worth of action awaits us on these historic streets. 22 of the world's best drivers will be taking to this circuit here today, and we'll be finding out in which order they line up on the grid. How it works in formulaE, we split the 22 right down the middle. We get 11 in Group A, 11 in Group B. The top 4 go through into the dual stages. Then we have quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then the finals, and that front row fight. The 11 drivers will filter out onto the circuit for the 3rd time here this morning. We've had 2 practice sessions so far in Monte Carlo. This man here, Pascal Wehrlein, reigning world champion, inside the top 10, Karun, but not necessarily the quickest of the cars.
Speed and potential when it matters.
Just to clarify, that is a set-up modelling shot, not an actual normal Saturday in Monaco.
Like watching Love Actually or something like that. So cars heading out onto the track for the first time then here today. You can see attack mode there out of Casino Square. That's where the drivers will activate it under racing conditions here this afternoon for the E-Prix. 29 laps, both E-Prix here this weekend. The difference between the two is that we've got pit boost returning for the first time since Jeddah. Essentially, drivers will have to come into the pit lane. It's a mandatory pit stop. 34 seconds they'll come to a stop, have a charger plugged into the back of the car, and they will get an extra energy boost of 10% in the race. That's a different element of strategy.
Yeah, but you still want to have a pretty representative time on the board, I think, until you, before you get to the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Here is championship leader Oliver Rowland coming across the garage with Norman Nato, putting in a strong performance. Took his first ever pole position in formulaE. Eventually was classified in 6th place after all of the penalties were awarded.
Just listen to that, Maxi Gunther just dabbing the brakes, trying to get temperature into the front brakes. You heard it sort of squeaking on and off, and that's him just trying to build up a little bit of temperature.
Well, we heard in practice Lucas de Grassi's engineer coming on the team radio saying go out, be aggressive to start with at the start of the session to get those heat into the tyres and the brakes, get everything up to the optimum working window.
Well, they've got very small brakes on the rear of the car, because most of the rear deceleration happens with the electric motors and the recovery system. On the front they've got bigger brakes, and one thing that does happen is if you get temperature into the front brakes, that heat dissipates through the rim and into the tyres as well, so you get the front tyres working. But you'll see Pascal Wehrlein, he's gonna go for the first push lap of the session.
It goes up to 4th quickest. Just a reminder,
clearing to keep it out of the barrier, which is almost like he hadn't quite managed to get the arc of the middle of the tunnel as smooth as possible.
Missed the chicane, so back off, right off.
We were talking about it earlier, David, as well. There's a big bump on the entry into that corner, isn't there?
Yeah, so let's just look here. Very at the last moment he has a bit of a kick of the steering, and then rear axle has not given him the grip as he's gone over the rise. I think he might regret bailing out and not attempting to make the chicane, because he was only a car's width away from getting there.
Here's Maloney on a lap here. I'm interested to see how the Lola Yamaha package goes on, because yes, de Grassi was a little bit lucky to get 2nd place, the other people getting excluded, but actually, as Maloney does a 31-0, the car was competitive all weekend. He qualified in the top 10. He was in the mix in that sort of top 6 battle all through the race. So it wasn't a lucky podium. I think they are genuinely, making strides forward.
They were struggling with pace this morning, though. I have to say they were down 21st, 22nd, club last of the session, but they didn't do any full power 350 kilowatt laps. So let's see whether the car favours these dual stages a little bit more, and see whether Maloney is able to extract some performance out of that lowly Yamaha apps machine. Still in the DS Penske, currently down in 6th fastest. Roland harries his way through that first sector. You can see our virtual race engineer says the predicted lap time 1:28.850 will be the cut-off point. Currently, there's only 2 drivers inside that, which is Oliver Roland and Nick de Vries. So let's see how the pace ramps up in the closing stages of this session.
Yeah, it's definitely ramping up. We've got exactly the same first sector for Bird and Roland, 26.105. So nothing to separate them so far.
Verline on an improvement here. I don't think it's going to go to the top of the pile, but he's certainly looking quicker than he has done throughout the course of this session, and it's a very important lap here for the reigning world champion. He comes to the timing line. Does he improve and get into the duels? He does. He goes 3rd quickest, but there's a lot of drivers behind on fast laps as well. Roland overall here.
Yeah, a bit of movement on the braking for the second part of the swimming pool chicane, so let's see if that's hurt his final sector time. As you said, Tom, his middle sector wasn't an improvement. Sam Bird is improving, though.
Yeah, he improved in the first sector, dropped a bit of time in the second sector, a couple of tenths of a second or so. Roland comes to take the checkered flag, doesn't improve in time. I think Bird's backed down a bit, has he?
I think he's backed out of it. So he's out.
Yeah.
Bird's going to come in the pits. He's out of... he's going to be out in group qualifying stages, but watch Jake Dennis. He's coming up to the line, and he's on a good lap here.
Yeah, Nato's also missed out on the dual stages. That's a shame for Norman Nato. What about Jake Dennis, though? Can he upset Max Gunter's 4th place and the spot in the duels? He can. So Dennis improves and goes 2nd quickest, gets the Andretti into the duels. Teammate Nico Muller misses out. Last driver coming across the timing line then is Nick de Vries. He's already through, so that's done and dusted at the end of Group A qualifying. It's Oliver Roland, Jake Dennis, Nick de Vries and Pascal Verline, who are the 4 drivers that go through and into the Core 3 Practice 1 session in the barrier and was out for a couple of weekends. Here's a classification, though, from Group A. Oliver Roland, Jake Dennis and Nick de Vries, as well as Pascal Verline, are the 4 drivers that will go forwards and into the duels. Max Gunter does not make it through by 7/100ths of a second. On to Group B then. Antonio Felix da Costa for Tag Heuer Porsche, Taylor Barnard for Neon McLaren, Jake Hughes for Maserati, then Mortara, Mitch Evans, de Grassi, beg your pardon, as well as Van Dorn, pit lane, 2nd in the championship for da Costa, just 14 points adrift of Oliver Roland's championship lead. Roland's leading the championship, taking a bit of a knock courtesy of a 10th place classification in Miami a fortnight ago. He was one of the drivers who fell foul of the attack mode misusage. As we look at Mitch Evans on the circuit, then the winner here from 12 months ago. Knows his place
high up above the casino, and you can see the harbour, well, the harbour front just below us there, the bottom left. But that is a brilliant overhead shot of that part of the circuit.
Yeah, drones have brought us some incredible images, and historically they never used to show anything really above Monaco. The helicopters were kept well back, but yeah, that's giving us amazing sort of perspective of how the Principality sort of perched on the side of the hillside, and half of it, of what you see actually, is France. So it's quite a narrow 2.2 square kilometre strip of Principality.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place for a race. It's just the energy and the atmosphere here. It just exudes in sort of every fibre of your being, doesn't it, really? I was down talking to Ian James, and he just said it's just such a special place to be. It's one of those circuits as well that it's funny walking around here, that you know it so well because you've watched it on television for years, and you come here and it lives up to the expectation.
Yeah, you got the palace and the top.
The number 33 of Dan Tickton coming across the timing line. So what we saw in Group A were drivers doing a couple of build laps to get heat into the tyres, the brakes, get everything up to the right working window, and then going on for their push laps. And interestingly, unlike what we've seen in other qualifying sessions this season, they stayed out for the entirety of the session. So I expect we'll see a repeat of that one. I guess for some teams, if you're looking at the likes of Porsche, for example, with Costa in this one, they had a car out in Group A a few moments ago, whereas Cupra Kiro have got both cars in this session.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, you know, in a way, it's good for the team because they get... if you have one car in each session, you obviously get data from the first group to feed back to the driver in the second group and pass on any information. But then on the flip side, if they're both in the same group, like I think Maserati are the other ones as well, aren't they? and these guys are Jaguar. You know, you've got a like-for-like comparison in terms of
starting first build. Let's focus on front tyre warm-up.
Sounds like an East Coast Scottish accent there.
I'm glad you were able to decipher that one, because I didn't have the ability to do so.
Well, another way of saying it is, it sounds like a posh Scottish accent, so that's from east rather than west. I'm from the west.
Taylor Barnard, team radio there that we just heard a few moments ago. He made his debut here. Not ideal at all there for Degrassi.
Yeah, he's precise enough, you know, close to the barriers, but I think there's just too much going on for this to be a time that's going to frighten the field.
With it, that's the risk, isn't it? You leave it too late, you get a yellow flag, it compromises your lap, and then you're not able to improve. You can see drivers slowing down, trying to find some clear track here in order to be able to set their lap times. That is David Beckman in the Cupra Kiro. You see just behind him is Robin Freitz in the Envision. Of course, Buemi on the other side of the Envision. Garage not able to set a strong lap time and get through into the duels. He's all at sea so far. His position in this session, and of course set his first representative lap time as we head down in towards the chicane. This is where we saw a few drivers making some mistakes, including Sam Bird.
that was good. He got the car rotated into the right apex, pinched a little bit of that yellow curve, and that really opens up the exit if you can do that. Look at the middle sector reflexor.
Taking a lot of curve there on the inside of the chicane, threading the eye of a needle. I love this part of the circuit. It's just magical to watch a race car dancing through here, and due to the tyres that we use in formulaE, they do move around a lot more underneath you, and you see that especially when we're
now up the hill. Evans looks like he's in quite a good groove there. Really big commitment, gets over the top of the crest as we turn left through Massenet, and now we'll see the first sector time, but Evans is looking quite well dialed in, I have to say, on this lap.
We can hold it together for the rest of the lap. Through into the swimming pool we go for Mitch Evans. Nice and neat and tidy there for him. Third quickest he is at the moment. Lap times looking pretty similar to what we had in Group A a few minutes ago as well. Checker flag is now out then. One more corner, Anthony Noakes to go for Evans as he comes to break the beam. Third quickest, he'll need to improve in time because others behind him are on fast laps. Evans comes to the line, he does improve, goes to the top of the pile by 5/100ths of a second. Now what about Dan Tincton through into the swimming pool? Nick Cassidy then, pressure on him, and he only goes 8th fastest. It's another dismal qualifying for the Kiwi. Da Costa currently out of the dual stages and fails to improve in time and gets out-qualified also by Edo Mortara. So the man who's second in the Drivers' World Championship also gets beaten by Van Dorn at the end of that session. What about Jake Hughes in the second of the Maserati MSG machines? Across the timing line he goes. Does he improve? No, he doesn't, and stays 11th. Tincton, Evans, Barnard and Robin Freitz, the four drivers who go forwards and into the dual stages. And you can see there,
well, Freitz is in, but look at Cassidy's going to be on the second last row of the grid.
So disappointing there for Nick Cassidy, and a shake of the head there for Sylvain Philippi, despite Freitz making that one. Let's get clarification though of the results from Group B. It is Dan Tincton in the Cupra Kiro, top of the pile by 0.3 of a second over Mitch Evans. Barnard in third ahead of Freitz in fourth. Sadly, missing out on the duels is Edo Mortara. He's been very quick so far this weekend, so he'll be quite disappointed. Ahead of David Beckman, Stoppelman.
Download and watch it live on Sport TV Now app.